Hello and good morning. Welcome to Angels of Purpose Ministries, where we feed your soul food for your soul. And so we are still in the Let's Talk About It series and living the truth, speaking the truth, walking the truth, and being the truth. Okay, is our sub series heading. And what we're going to talk about today is people, especially leadership, realizing what's going on. If you say there's a system structure put in place that helps a certain group of people, then that's systemic. That means then there's systemic oppression for another group of people. And that means that that group of people do hold the other group down because of the systems they have put in place. Now, I want to say some of these things, I have to remember I'm back in Southwest Georgia, South Georgia, where I've been told by the old boys club that they know how to keep their black folks. They didn't say black folks. They specifically said the N-word. Said they know how to keep them in control, and that they have been. And the only reason stuff happens or is said is when people from out of town or educated people who hadn't lived here all their lives come here. And then that's the only reason the black people they've been able to keep in control try doing something. This is what they told me explicitly. So you have to wonder with the powers that be who you can trust when you're trying to make change and bring forth change, right? So the only way you can know who you can trust, and to be honest with you, I do not trust anybody, any person in leadership. Now, if they proclaim to be of God and I see the love of God in them, I trust the God in them, but I don't trust specifically them. And when you have somebody who say they do work for the people, but they don't put people who actually traveled all over the country in position to be able to help the people, or they don't work with them when the people have offered, and they say that no one's ever, called or said anything about what goes on when people have offered stuff, or they say stuff that's not correct, like certain people don't get anything because they haven't done anything. And then when you correct that and say that's not true, the powers that be do not highlight certain organizations and businesses. They only highlight certain other ones. And I'm gonna just tell you this: the Moultrie Chamber of Commerce has a whole lot, I'm not going to say a whole lot of black businesses, but it has about 4 or 5 that I've seen when I've been networking, when I paid my whatever membership fee last year, which I'm not giving Moultrie Chamber of Commerce any more money. They spotlighted and highlight all the Caucasian businesses, and they gave me a little excuse about why they weren't going to put my stuff in the newspaper the same week they did pictures and everything, and they said we're gonna do it, but it'd be weeks later. Now, was it ever done? It probably wasn't. So I say this to say that things that people say, you have to take with a grain of salt unless they have evidence and proof. Sometimes people say stuff just to see how much they can say, and how much people will believe it without asking for evidence. What I need this community to do, and this is what I volunteer to people who be talking about stuff, and a lot of times they be talking about stuff and folks be believing them because they're followers and they don't do their research themselves. They just take everything certain people say as truth instead of doing their own research. And I'm going to tell you this right here. When it comes to me, I definitely want you to do your research. I want you to make sure that what I'm saying line up. I give you the resources too and the sites you can go to, whether it's on political figures, running for office, whether it's biblically or whatever. anyone who always just wants you to take their word for it and want you to be dependent on them and them only, and that is a problem, and want everything to run through them, that is a problem. We shouldn't make any person a god. We shouldn't make put anybody up on a pedestal. Again, the only one we should trust is the God in people. And people can say one thing and their actions speak another, and that's what we have to realize. We have to look at, who do we actually see really doing stuff in the community, and are they really doing it to help everybody, or are they really doing it to keep people's mouths shut? They're just doing it in a different way and working for those who are oppressing the folks, right? So we just have to keep that in mind. We have to do our research and know the word of God in 2 Timothy 2:15 says, "Study to show thyself approved, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth," right? Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Now, the word of truth, people say the Bible, right? And as I've been talking about, the books of the Bible are Christianity and religion has been used as a tool of oppression. And how can I say that? I have evidence that books of the Bible were taken out in 400 AD, right? And by the Roman Catholics, and taken and held in their a building where they keep it stored behind a wall or whatever in this secret spot. Now, in every place they conquered, they made sure that they had their Bible that they wrote, which they wanted to put things in there to justify their slavery and everything else. And then, living off the backs of people, the labor of other people who helped grow their, what we now know as the world powers or colonialism, right? And all of that, okay? Also, I want to say this too. The truth can be, come from different sources, and you put it all together and it all will make sense. Just like history, the Bible, science works together sometimes, right? You have to, again, get different perspectives, because different perspectives, people can come at things different ways, just like the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. They had different accounts on what happened. It's not to say that one account was wrong and one account was right. It's just that they saw things and talked about it in a different way or different light sometimes, right? And they brought out a different detail that the other person or person who wrote the gospel didn't, right? So we have to understand and really have our analytical hats on. Critical thinking. In this country especially, they don't want people to have critical thinking skills. As a matter of fact, they're trying to take critical thinking out of all school systems, right? There was a big war and battle talking about critical thought, critical thinking classes shouldn't be taught. Whether in high school, college, whatever, they wanted it all out. Now, why would people not want folks to be able to do and utilize critical thinking? Because they want to dumb down their society so that they can do and oppress the people without the people knowing that they're being oppressed. So that they can steal your Social Security money, so that they can do this and do that, and so that you won't know what's going on until it's too late. And that is what I fear. Too many people, well, I'm not going to say, because God always has a ram in the bush. God always has true people, because he said there's false prophets, there's false teachers, there's false people who try to lead folks, right? That stand on stuff that people think are true leaders. But if you truly watch the way they move and how they move, they're just puppets for the people who they're saying they're representing you and try to help you not necessarily fight against, because they say those folks aren't oppressing you. So they've already been brainwashed, and they're being used as puppets to make you think that you're not oppressed when you are oppressed. And what they don't realize is they contradict themselves when they say, okay, you're not being oppressed, but there's systems put in place to help certain people over other people. That is systemic racism. That is systemic. And all these people don't know this information because they, for one, hadn't studied law. 2, they don't do their research. 3, they think they can say stuff without people calling them out on what is their untruth, right? And when people don't have critical thinking, or they're just followers, or they have people who do one thing and they think they all that and then something else, just because they got a street paved, or they call about this or they call about that, and they think because a Caucasian person may listen to them sometimes that there's somebody, because they can get the ear of that. But you have to be very careful about that, because sometimes when people in power listen to certain folks, and I'm going to tell you, because anywhere you look, whether it's in the Bible, whether you look in history, anybody who truly led to help free and oppress people, they came up against friction, right? It wasn't like easy. It wasn't like they said, oh yeah, we're just going to do we're going to have your best interest at hand. We're going to do what you want to be done. Whether it was Moses, whether it was Deborah, whether it was whoever it was, Joseph, right? Whether it was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Ralph Abernathy, whether it was Sojourner Truth, whether it was Harriet Tubman. And most of the time when men leaders talk, you don't hear them talk about the women. Whether it was Mary Magdalene, who had a whole lot more responsibility than a lot of men, pastors and preachers give her, or Harriet Tubman, whether they give her the credit and all of that, because it's more about their power tripping on what they can do and not who God can work through. So the most important thing is understanding that God can use and utilize anybody who has a willing heart to help the people. And a lot of times people miss being helped because they're looking at the wrong people and not how God is working in and through people, and not how God has given certain folks gifts and talents to do things, because people will overlook those who can help them to go to those who seem to be the loudest, or those who seem to be to have a platform or be on the pulpit, just because they're on the pulpit and have a title and position, or because they have a platform, or because they're just a male. And where did all this hierarchy come from? It came from the West. Now, the word of God says there's neither Greek nor Jew, bond nor female, bond nor free, male nor female, but we're all one in Christ Jesus, meaning God has no respect of persons. But then, and if you read the Bible, sometimes you can get confused, because you would think, because of how the Bible has been, even though it's supposed to be inspired by God, the people who put the Bible together and put it out used it as a tool of oppression. So they tried to put a hierarchy in there, saying that certain groups of people were better than others, saying that a certain gender was better than others, and all of this. And if you don't study and really understand and know that some was inspired by God and some was these people's free will and them just putting in there what they wanted to put in, so that they could dictate and manipulate folks. And that same manipulation and dictation is still going on today. And they use people who they can bribe, and leaders who they think are leaders in certain communities, to speak, to make them think that they're leaders for you, but when they're just being puppets for the people who are oppressing you. So we just have to critical thinking is very important. Discernment is very important. Knowing the truth for yourself is very important. That's why you have to study legislature. That's why you have to know how the local government works. That's why you have to know how the state government works. That's why you have to know how the federal government works. I know everybody can't go to law school. Everybody can't get the education that I may have, but you can do your research. You can go to the library. You can look at stuff. You can go online and go to the credible resources and research stuff from Howard University, from the Ivy League schools, Harvard, Yale, from the historically black colleges and university, from the black historical museum in Washington, D.C. or in Atlanta, or the places that have the history and the knowledge and the people, or the griots, the storytellers who've actually written it down. so that we can have this information. Okay. So what I want you to do, and what I've been telling you all to do, please, in order to get information out, people need to be educated. People need to know for themselves that they can do the research. They can find the information. People have to have a hunger and thirst for truth. They have to be able to want to read. Okay. And you got to vet your sources. Vet your sources. Vet your sources very carefully. Vet them. And I'm going to tell you this. If you look at the story of Jesus, you saw him in the Bible, this Canaan Bible, right? Where he spoke, and his parents lost him at the age of 12, and then they realized after 2 or 3 days that he wasn't with them, and found him in the synagogues, asking questions and talking to the scholars or the religious leaders of that day, right? And then you don't hear any more about him until he's 30, and he has a 3-year ministry, right? Anybody who is a true leader has to go through a process of learning, educating, being gone through things in life, spiritually, financially, in whatever aspect that they're going to help the people, right? So that they can actually understand what the people have gone through, so that they can actually understand, okay, I know what it's like to have been hungry or live paycheck to paycheck, or not to be taken seriously by the police. And let me touch on this too. I heard somebody say in a forum that someone posted online that people need to train their kids to respect first responders. Now, let me tell you this. All these people who are saying these things, I traveled all over the country, and some of the people I've worked with, right? With the AFL-CIO, ACLU, Work in America, the organization I was with was at the time Work in America, who works with the AFL-CIO, American Federal Civil Liberties Union. That's what AFL-CIO stands for, and the ACLU. But I traveled all over making sure first responders got their pension plans, right? Now, I respect authority, and I respect police and firemen. We have some of the best ones, right? But just because somebody puts on a uniform does not mean they're good. We have to have discernment with that too. We can't just teach our kids just to trust somebody and get in the car just because they're police. And when I say get in the car, if it's nighttime and a kid is walking home, you can't just think because it's a policeman they're going to do what's right. The sex trafficking stuff doesn't just go on by folks the white collar folks who never get caught or get thrown in prison. They're allowed to do that through who? Some of the people in the blue uniforms, right? And I'm gonna just say this: sex trafficking has been very bad recently in communities, even in the smaller towns. Like it was bad in a certain part of Wisconsin, Wausau. I did research and I didn't know it was that bad. And you have to watch, making sure your kids don't go out so late at night and different other things, especially the girls, but they do the boys as well. And just because somebody has a uniform does not mean that they're exempt from being a part of something. If somebody is evil or bad, they could have on a uniform or not have on a uniform. We can't just take things at face value. We have to look at what they say. We have to look at how they act and how they do and how they treat people. Okay. Yes, we respect everybody, but we can't tell folks to blindly trust somebody just because they are on the pulpit, or blindly trust people because they have a uniform, or blindly trust people because they have a title. That is a lack of knowledge and understanding, and that's ignorant. You cannot blindly trust folks. You have to understand where they stand, where they're coming from, what they're doing, what they're all about. All right, so I have to go, and I just wanted to touch bases. And I don't care if this get up under the skin. I don't care who send this to who, in the Moultrie community. I want you to send it to the folks, because I want them to know they have somebody here in Moultrie, Georgia now who critically thinks, who's analytical, and who's truly about helping people. And if they truly want to help people, they will connect with the folks who say, hey, I'm here to help. Let me help, instead of just trying to do it and get credit, because it's not about who gets credit, Because if you proclaim to be a child of God and on the pulpit, then all glory is supposed to go to God, not about what you do. And when you always saying about you, and how you do it and not God, that's a red flag to me there. All right, you all be blessed. Let's work together. For where there's unity, there's strength. Let's work together so that God can get the glory and for our good. Find the leaders who are not afraid about who gets the glory, who's not trying to get attention, but who is truly trying to put themselves out there to say, hey, I'm here. I have the knowledge. I have the understanding. I have the wisdom. Utilize that and let's work together and let's get things changed and done that helps everybody, every group of people, every gender, every nationality, every ethnicity. And let's do what we can and love one another. Walk in love, walk in truth, live in truth, and allow God to be the truth in us. Have a blessed and prosperous day.